Hey, 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 hey!
It's about to get crazy. It's about to go down. It's about to get crazy. It's gonna be loud. This is our house. We do what we wanna. We'll blow the roof up. Everybody's coming. It's about to get crazy. It's about to go down. It's about to go down.
You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. Life is not easy. Life isn't fair. It never was, and it never will be. A good life takes grit, because the best things in life come from hard work, sacrifice, resolve, determination, and perseverance. Because grit means never quitting. It means coming back time and time again until you succeed. So on this show, we talk hunting, we talk outdoors, we talk conservation, we talk family and life. We talk fitness, and we talk strength, strength of body, strength of mind, and strength of character. Prioritize who you are and who you want to be. Get gritty, because life isn't fair, and a little grit can make all the difference.
This one.
Donkey Dingling? Donkey
Kong.
Donkey Kong. Whoa. You can recline that chair if you want to.
I'm good.
I just need a footstool here.
I think if I reclined, I'd fall asleep.
It is.
It's past 9. It's my bedtime.
It is getting a little late. It is getting a little late.
I'm good.
What time is it?
9:30.
Yeah.
So
We're burning the midnight oil. All right, folks. Welcome back to the Gritty Podcast with Ryan Carter. And this is part 3 of this Big Bull Case Study tangent podcast.
I was going to say, a lot of rabbit holes in this one.
Elk after midnight.
Yeah.
So let's dive into this. So we're going to talk about two bulls, right?
Yep.
And what do we got? We got Donkey Kong.
Yep.
Which is a cool name, by the way. Brings back a lot of childhood memories.
Love Donkey Kong.
And the other one is
Chunky Monkey.
Chunky Monkey. Yeah, Ben and Jerry's.
Well, these are the bulls everyone asked to see, talk about. So we already, people asked about Cinco, Bobby. We touched on them. MJ.
Mm-hmm.
Seemed like we talked on another one.
Okay, I got to figure out how Chunky Monkey got named. Where does this come from?
Chunky Monkey, he's the most massive bull I've ever chased. He's funny. He's got his
massive, like in body?
No, his beams.
Okay.
You can't put your
hand around
them. Yeah, they're huge. And the sheds have been picked up. Kid and Price picked him up. Jacob, good kid. He's got both of his right side, I got to think about that. His left side,
mm-hmm.
which is his more heavy side.
Mm-hmm.
I've cammed Chunky for.
You're telling me that the base on that thing is.
His base actually isn't that big.
Okay.
His beams are what's big.
Really?
So he's got a bent pedicle.
Uh-huh.
So his one base sits flush on his head. There's no pedicle really there. And it kind of sits down and forward.
Mm-hmm.
His other one's a normal type pedicle. I don't know if it's genetic or damage. I never know what actually causes that. I actually think that's genetic, because damage typically either moves it more or causes spurs. And he doesn't have any spurs.
Okay.
But all the same, he has a bent pedicle, and his left beam shoots straight up in the air almost. Just incredibly long points. His beams are actually really tight, maybe 40, 43 inches long every year. They're right there. He's got a big body size. He's got a chocolate brown coat.
Show me a picture, dude. He sounds crazy.
You've never seen this bull?
I scroll through. I told you earlier,
kind of sad.
All antlers to me are just cool, but I don't Anthony will go, that's such and such bull. And he can imprint in his mind the look of an animal. And I just don't, I'm not wired that way.
Yeah.
But I like to look at one when I scroll by it.
So here's him on June 10th.
Oh, dude, that's a freak.
That's the Chunky Monkey.
What is
Vermont's finest. He's one of my favorite bulls. Like,
holy cow, that's a freak.
inches aside, he's never going to score some.
This is Chunky Monkey, not Donkey Dong.
Yeah.
Like, this thing is like,
I know.
how does he eat?
When I eventually post this bull, he's either going to be dead or it'll be probably January the next year. Because I don't want people hunting him on the late hunt. He's actually killable in the late hunt, and he's killable in the bow season, but that's about it.
Wow. That's a freak.
So,
how many inches? What would that bull score?
Probably this year. So here he is last week.
Which you said
I'm going to show
is
you
a drought year, so you're not too thrilled.
Well, this year, he's my only bull that kind of stayed the same, and maybe he's a little bigger.
Okay.
Maybe, but not ridiculously. Mm-hmm. He'll score fairly about the same. So I think 15 was the year he really kind of blew up, and he was I think he scored 358.
He has so much character.
Yeah.
The mass. We were just talking about that offline. Like, I just like mass. I don't really care too much if it's got 5 points, 3 points. Like, I just want it to be thick.
Yeah. Well, and I'm that way too. And even so, here's Chunky in 16. This was one of his better years.
Wow.
And he's only
What a freak.
I think he scored 358 that year.
Wow.
So score-wise,
it's like a unicorn, dude.
yeah, he's not a high-scoring bull.
You can see that right side's just not the same.
Well, in that year. This year, his right side's his biggest year. Like,
what?
This year, his right side is ridiculously big. And when people eventually start posting pictures, Tines Up usually does it first. Mm-hmm. I won't post him till later. Here he is last week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So much mass. Look at that thingy on the end, like that crown thing. What is that?
So
just drops?
He switched sides. That candy cane beam with the extra points on it was on his other side in 16. In 17, he kind of switched back to his right side. And then this year he's on his right side again, but it's hooking hard. Like
is his left side coming across his eye?
Yeah.
Across the bridge of his nose?
Yep. So his brow tines actually crisscrossed this year, and typically his left brow is the one that goes down over his face, and his right one goes up.
Yeah.
Well, this year his right one goes down, and his left one crosses it.
That's cool looking, though. I mean, he looks gnarly. Like, it seems like that would be a good fighting set of antlers right there.
What's funny is, so his sheds, his beams look like, have you ever seen like a tree that burned? And the bark burned off, but the tree remained solid, and it's kind of got flat planes, but they're all kind of different. That's what his beams look like. They don't look like a knobby elk beam with veins going through it. And it's smooth and kind of has weird octagonal planes.
Just some kind of weird genetic tendency that he has.
Yeah, and he's just extremely massive.
So
we refer to him as Chunky, or the Chunky Monkey.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It just so what would that score right there?
That is his.
Can they see it on the camera?
I don't know.
Yeah.
18 set of Chunky Monkey. It's the only picture you'll see from me, and I have that in 4K. So that's a 4K camera. Him walking through right there. See,
here's the deal. When you see a bull like that, it doesn't matter if he's 360 or 410 to me, because the character and the shape. Do people come along and look at a bull? Like Anthony shot this palmed bull in Mount Emily unit in Oregon, and it looks like a moose. The antlers come back and they just palm out like big time.
Yeah,
and it's a really cool looking bull. And when people see that bull, they think it's way, way bigger than it is.
Yeah.
Do you get that, like with certain bulls, where people just completely misjudge it?
He has that presence, right? I mean, you look at his right G3, and it's 27 inches long. And his left one's 18, but it's this big around. I mean, it's huge. And it's easy to see his presence when he walks in. He is a dominating-looking bull. I've told people before I probably would have pursued that bull over MJ last year. And MJ was a 400, and
Something,
even at his score-wise points at 412, I still would have pursued Chunky Monkey because I like character. And as far as elk are concerned, that's your once-in-a-lifetime bull.
Mm-hmm.
A 380 typical, you might have a chance at. You can do that in a couple different states if you work hard enough.
Yeah.
So
some people like pretty, though. Like, that's gnarly.
Like I have not had one client want that bull over any other bull.
Yeah, I think that's crazy. See,
that's what I think too.
Here's Anthony's bull.
Oh, how cool is that?
Look at the top there.
Yeah.
It's just like
bladed.
4 blades. And look how wide that palm, that antler is right there.
That's awesome.
And the other side's not quite the same, but you can see how small the bottom, the fronts are and stuff. There's really not much there. And he's got that classic Oregon third, which doesn't exist.
Moose half-breed.
But you look at the top and it's just like a moose, dude. That's so rare.
It is. And that's why I like character. I would shoot a heavy 170 type mule deer over a Willowhorn 200 because that's my preference.
Yeah.
I'm just that way. So Chunky is my favorite bull, hands down. But I've never actually pursued him. Now, 14, we walked in on him. I had Rick Houghton hunting. We bugled him in and could have shot him. At that point, he still didn't even have any character. He just had a twisted brow over his face and one that went straight out. And he was just a big, heavy 5-point. He was weird looking. 13 was my first picture, and he was maybe 4. Mm-hmm. So if we look at that, and it's 18, he's 8 years old.
He's
right
getting
now.
there. He's right there at that.
A couple months.
Yeah.
This is the break point. I was kind of hoping he'd blow out this year. Just
be a
400-inch. Score-wise, he's about what he was the year before. And people like him because I post him a lot.
Yeah.
Like when I do it's widespread.
I can't tell by looking at it what he would score because he's just so bizarre.
Yeah. Well, and you see when he comes in like a 4K video, because I'll post him.
Yeah.
He comes in and turns his head, and you can see how short his beams are, and then he straightens up. And a straight view, he's only 30-something on his inside because that left horn sticks straight up. His other side crown's pretty good.
Yeah.
But he's going to be a funny-looking mount. He's not going to score real well. He's just awesome.
Yeah.
And so people go crazy when I post him. I mean, even his 4-year-old picture that I posted today from 2013. I mean, you can just tell he's a funky-looking bull. And he's fun.
So you don't really know his you haven't figured him out yet, or you have?
Oh, I have, yeah. So
you got him dialed.
Well, I was hoping Casey wouldn't hunt him last year. But then when Bobby blew out the way he did, because Bobby was amazing, Casey's like, I don't care about any other bull. I want Bobby. Nice thing about Bobby and Chunky is they kind of harbored the same area.
Okay.
So Casey did have a chance, but the spot where Casey was sitting was actually where in that picture I just showed. The tree stand's right above him. Chunky only hits that about every 10 to 12 days, whereas Bobby was hitting it every 4.
Okay.
And Chunky has other spots. So Tines Up has a spot where they're getting him, and they'll post him, but it's only night shots. They get him once about every 15 days. And, that spot has 27 cameras in it because everyone knows he hits there.
Yeah.
But I have Chunky clicking on 11 different cameras right now, and 6 of them are daytime pictures. So I have him pretty locked down. And if I had the right bow hunter, like Casey, and I didn't have the dogs come in like we did last year, Chunky's as good as dead. He's patterned. I have him patterned better than any other bull. Unfortunately for me, I don't have a bow hunter this year. And that takes me out because during the rut, he kind of turns up here and there between different cameras. I know where he hangs out, but he didn't, like last year, he didn't push cows until October 6th. It's like he waited for that second go round for some reason.
Okay.
And he ran, he probably had 80 cows in that group. And then he migrated. His rutting ground, or his winter ground, is almost 20 miles away, 21 miles from where he starts.
Really?
And he covers that in less than a month, but it's between October 20th and November 15th.
Okay.
But I have him really tight. He's probably one of my most patterned bulls I've ever had.
Do you see him break his antlers off and stuff like that? Or
No, he's never busted up. Not that I know.
He's heavy.
Of. He's super heavy.
Which
and he's not hollow. Sometimes when bulls are super heavy, they have a hollow kind of attribute to their horns and they bust easier. But I don't think he has that. He's pretty dense.
What bulls do you find that display intense rutting behavior?
MJ was one of them. For whatever reason, typically my older heavy bulls, once they hit a certain age, they don't rut. They move into they follow the herds around, and then once a hot cow comes in,
they just take it.
They don't mess with the herd. They just go in and hook that hot cow out, and usually their presence is dominating enough that the other bulls won't challenge them. MJ was really odd in that sense because he rutted hard. Like I said, it's what saved his life in 16 and 15 is he busted off his G4 and 5 on his left side
Just a
both
fighter.
years. And when Kyle killed him, that was September 5th or 6th. And so the rut had really just kicked in and he was already missing 9 inches. He was a fighter for whatever reason, but Chunky's not a fighter. I don't think that bull's ever really pushed him too hard. I was really surprised to see him with the herd he had, but as he migrated out, he hit almost 16 of my cameras last winter. Really? I just have his patterns down. It's just been kind of unfortunate for me that I don't have a hunter that's been really
keen,
jumped on him. And this would be my year to kill him, and I don't have a bow hunter this year. So I don't see 2018 being a huge year for me. I don't have, the antler growth hasn't been great. He's my only bull that's kind of stayed the same, or he might even be a little bit bigger. He seems heavier to me. But
so you were saying earlier you don't normally worry about droughts too much, like the bulls seem to still do fairly well.
So typically on drought years, I get good antler growth. It's almost like rather than the grass growing and growing fast and being full of fluff, it grows a little slower and it's full of minerals. And my bulls typically do well on drought years, but this was extreme drought for that area. Mm-hmm. And what water there was like I said before, it was just full of cow pee and poo, the cattle. Yeah,
it's a bummer to draw a tag on a year like this. Same problems happen in Arizona and Nevada and so on. Often it has. Have you noticed a year where you just get insane growth?
Well, like 14, we had that year. That was the year we killed Rick Houghton's bull. He was a 5 or 6 year old bull that scored 394. Titus was killed that year. Titus is just
a good growth year because of the conditions.
Yeah, and it was a dry year. It was straight up hard. Droughts don't typically scare me, but this year I've really been shocked at the.
Just didn't see any increase in size, really.
Uno dropped almost 25 inches this year.
Really?
Typically, he's one of my higher scoring bulls. He's never capped 400. Mm-hmm. This year, I think he's 9.5. I really thought he was going to blow up, and honestly, he's maybe 365.
Wow.
He's super heavy. He's a cool looking typical 6, but he's nothing to what he was.
How interesting to see, something decline. How old do these bulls get?
Well, they all get killed around 11 or 12 tops. All these bulls eventually die from hunters. I don't think very many of them die of old age. They might die from being gored to death from other bulls, but I don't see these bulls, any of them, dying of old age. I think that's
just not what happens.
Yeah,
in the area you're at.
Yeah. So, I guess it's possible. I just don't see it. I've never seen a bull that old. Donkey Kong is probably the oldest bull I know of right now. Him and MJ, I got pictures of together back in 14. 13, I chased him with a hunter. He almost shot him. In 13, he was a giant 5-point. Every tine over 20. He threw his gun up and I just said, I'm okay with you shooting him, but just know he's a 5. He's like, what? But Donkey, he got named Donkey Kong for almost the same reason MJ looks now.
Really?
He just had a big point coming over his face and dropped straight down. very phallus looking. But Donkey has lost that since. I haven't seen him this year, but only because I haven't been in that area checking cameras.
Okay.
But I get him every year. The cool things about Donkey Kong is he's a bull I've never been able to pattern. I get 6 or 7 pictures of him a year. Great big G3s, and it gives him a 60-inch wide bull presence because they hang out like this. They're probably 26 inches long.
They just stick out beyond the main beams.
Yeah, but the mains are probably, he's got his average 40, maybe 44, somewhere in there, but man, he looks wide. He's just cool looking bull.
He sounds like a cool bull.
But he's a bull that only shows up on 1 or 2 cameras, one time a year. Last year, though, when I pulled my winter cameras, I found all his September photos, like where he rutted hard last year. And it was an area I've never really hung cameras. At least, I did 10 years ago, back when we had flash bulb cameras.
Yeah.
35. I used to run that area. And so when I went in there, I kind of thought, I'm going to check this area out and put some cameras up. I haven't done this spot in years. So here I put this camera while I go in this spring to pull it. And here I have Donkey rutting in September. Never really pushing cows, but I had him twice with the cows. There's a bull in the field and he's kind of cruising the circle, kind of like what old bulls do.
Yeah.
But if I had to guess, I would think he's about 12. Like he's older. He's at that. I think I don't really believe in the decline. I think if elk decline, mule deer decline, they get this thing where they start rotting away their teeth. They can't get the mineral content they need, and they might last 2 or 3 years before the decline kills them.
Yeah.
And even then it's from starvation.
Right.
It's not a go to sleep old man type death. It's still, it's still gnarly, right? I don't think elk do that. I think once their teeth are ground down, they're going to die pretty quick.
Well, I think too, like with mule deer, what I've seen is I haven't seen them display the same laid back nature toward rutting that I see with elk, mature old bull elk. Like they kind of get to an age where they're like, I can pass on sex. Right. But I don't see mule deer that I've seen. They're just like, they would rather die in the battle. And so I think they do.
That's true.
I think they just seem to never lose the drive. They typically just die of fighting for every doe they can find, breeding, going into the winter too weak because they've depleted all their reserves, and then dying.
I couldn't disagree with that, but I don't really know.
Yeah.
I'm not a mule deer guy as much as I am elk, and I've killed big mule deer back in the days on the Henry.
I just think
but I don't know them like elk.
Yeah, I just think that the elk, I've seen and heard of many elk that just kind of, as they get older, they are like, I'm not gonna work myself that hard. I'm just not gonna do this. I'm not gonna do that. And so they're not going into the season like sacrificing. Like I've seen bulls get rage and then fight, but what I see with mule deer is on another level sometimes, where they start fighting a dead mule deer on the ground and they are just destroying it, one that a hunter shoots. Just psychotic rutting behavior.
I've seen elk do that too, but it's a younger age class. The one up to that 350, 360, 6-year-old bull range, they're aggressive like that. We've shot bulls and had other bulls go and run in and gore them. They do it, and that's why I say I don't really know, because I've never chased mule deer that I knew were 10 and 12 years old.
I don't think they get that old.
I don't know. I have no idea.
I think they just push their bodies too hard.
Even some of our very biggest mule deer we pulled off the Henrys were only 6 or 7 years old. And that's my breaking point for elk. And those mule deer were 240 and 267 inches. They were big freaking deer, but they were only 6 or 7.
Right.
I've never seen a 10-year-old mule deer. I don't know that they wouldn't have the same approach to some of our older bulls, but so I just don't know. Yeah. But it's the same kind of. You're right.
Bring a biologist into this discussion.
You're right in the attribute that you don't see the laid back nature in mule deer very often as you do as old bulls, because they do have this laid back old man nature, like
They start coasting through, and they're still getting some, but it's not like a major deal. If the way they cost, we were just hunting those deer in Montana last year, and there's this one that we called Droopy, I think is what we called him, Droopy or something like that.
So
anyway,
you name animals too.
Oh yeah, especially when there's like a whole bunch of them in an alfalfa field.
Yeah.
Because we were whitetail hunting for elk. So basically we had to name them, Ryan. It was part of the
you have to do
procedure.
It whether you like it or not.
Yeah. We had to find some private land, get permission to hunt it, right? And then we had to sit in blinds on alfalfa fields, and then we had to name all the elk.
What else are you going to do with a blind?
I mean, come on. Candy Crush.
Yeah.
And so, or Fortnite.
There you go.
But seriously, we're naming this bull, and this one we named was quite a bit smaller than the rest of the elk. But everybody wanted to shoot that one because his character was so unique.
Yeah.
And he's actually not a very big bull. But that bull managed to...
This is Droopy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This bull managed to keep his cows, like 8 or 9 of them, not nearly as many as everybody else, but seemed to always have one that was in heat, and still got to like run around, strut his stuff, never locked horns with a single bull, but yet, picked up cows and avoided, he was just smarter than everybody else, period.
Yeah.
And you could see him just working his old man magic out there around all the other elk.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool to see because he'd been around a long time. A lot of hunters in the area had tried to kill him. They'd tried to kill him for a few years, hadn't been able to do it. The neighbor had tried to kill him, some of the neighbor's friends. And he got passed on a couple times by guys that were like looking for that 380, 390 class, and he's 340, 350.
Yeah.
But he just had so much character. But what was cool is just watching an old bull behave, and it's a lot different than these other bulls.
Well, and that's why I've learned what I've learned is doing the same thing. I have lookouts, and like when I'm pulling cameras in October, it allows me time to go watch these bulls on their winter ground because I can actually glass them. It's not like when I'm on the plateau, I'm just walking from spot to spot for miles and miles with no binoculars. I'll sit up on these points and watch these bulls kind of work. And that's how I learned, like, how those old bulls, they don't even push cows. They just stand off to the side and graze while they're running around like crazy. And then, it's almost dark. I'm going to go get that hot cow.
Yep.
They grab her, they move out. The next morning, he's still by himself feeding.
Yep.
He's done his business, and he could care less about the commotion. So he walks into winter with all this extra body fat and all this, he hasn't run himself ragged, where like I've seen bulls just skin him bones in December because they worked so hard in September, October. Yet this old bull that didn't do anything, he's fat as life,
Yeah. That bull that Anthony shot in Mount Emily with the big palms, it looks like a moose, right? That bull, we were hunting one morning, on this mountain, and we were on some elk, and we were trying to pull in this bull, and it was a big bull, and we'd been after him the day before, and we're trying to close in on him this morning, and we're viewing, it just goes wild, and there's like 4 bulls screaming everywhere with their herds, and we're glassing them and seeing them and chasing them, and then we hear this bugle that's really faint. And we're like, where's that coming from? It's a cool sounding bugle, but it's pretty faint. And I look over there, we spot him in binos, and we see this bull and his cool antlers.
Yeah.
And he stands out, and he's got like 10 cows. These other bulls have 30 or 40 cows, right? And he's got like 10. And he's like, that's it. Yeah. And he's just kind of eating and hanging out with his cows, and all the other bulls are screaming. They're pissed. They're angry. They're going back and forth, and he doesn't bugle at all. He just stands there. And we switch gears. We're like, we want that bull.
Yeah.
So we start calling, pushing in, trying to do what we would normally do. He doesn't like it at all. Like, he hears us coming close. He sees us bugling. He hears us bugling. And that bull just kind of pushed his cows into the trees and went silent. And he's right next to the main highway road. And there's just another dirt road that runs alongside it. And he's on this little tiny patch of green timber that's right in the middle of these 2 roads.
Yeah.
Like, you would think, it's the worst spot ever. It's right under your nose, but thick.
Yeah.
And so other bulls don't wander into that space in different, he's got this little thing and he's holding this fort down, and we move in on that spot. And anyway, we spend 2 days and finally we're able to glass him up one morning. We couldn't call him. He wouldn't come into calls. He wouldn't even bugle. We knew exactly where he was, and he wouldn't call. He wouldn't cooperate one iota. He'd go inside, and at night, in the afternoons and evenings, he would just rake these trees, and you could see the trees like shaking.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't make a peep. Never bugled. Never made a sound. That bull knew better than to make a sound. I mean, the sound would attract other bulls, probably.
Yeah.
That his bugling would attract hunters. Like, he was old. He figured things out. And so it was cool to, like, he had his cows for sure, and he was working that group. But he just wouldn't play like any of the other elk. And so that was the first time I ever went after like a bull that was really old, that displayed completely different behavior than your typical rutting bull. Mm-hmm. And we had to hunt him totally different. And we ended up glassing him, and he was right below an old cut bank road, like 20 yards below it, and some thick stuff. And we just got lucky and saw him there. I was like, holy cow. Wind was blowing uphill. We're like, we can walk right up that road. It's overgrown, but we could walk right up that road. And if we stand right there, we're going to have a 20-yard shot. And sure enough, went in, got right above him, and he stood up, and Anthony shot him. And it's like, the behavior though was so different than any other elk we've tried to hunt. And that's where I started to become intrigued by old bulls. I started reading articles by guys that would chase really old bulls, and they do act different.
That's weird. So like Zoolander, another bull we've chased, he always, we had this camera we call the runway. I mean, it's just this little landing on a bench, and it's just narrow, and they got to walk right up the runway. And so I had this bull that kept
Zoolander.
He would get right in front of the camera almost every time and turn and look at the camera, just full blue steel. Like, so we named him Zoolander, and, he got killed last year with, Connor Belknap killed him. Some of the Times Up guys was helping him. Awesome bull. He scored a lot bigger than I thought. I thought he was like a 385 type bull. He's gorgeous, straight, typical. But he was 403. He was big.
Wow.
Anyway, and Connor's an awesome kid. He's 15, just excited about life. Just hit the ground running. It's awesome. But that bull, we had him. So after Bobby last year hit the dirt, like we literally looked up on the hill and there was Zoolander right above us.
Really?
Couldn't make a play. Came in that night. Well, here's Shaggy, a bull I haven't found yet this year. Shaggy was running about 40 cows. He's maybe a 365 to 370 type bull, extremely wide. Just awesome six. In fact, last year, the first 4K elk stealth cam photo or video they ever posted was Shaggy, one of my bulls. This is just awesome video. He's sitting there feeding. You can hear the audio of him licking some salt, look out, look around. It's just awesome. He's a cool bull. But here this 365 type bull is running 40 cows like they do. And here's Zoolander off on the side, just could care less. It's one of the random places that I can actually glass a little ways.
Yeah.
So he, and Zoolander kind of walked off 20 minutes before dark and went into these thick trees and was gone. And my guy cracked 2 shots at Shaggy, but they're pretty far and he missed pretty bad. But I mean, that's just how it goes. And, which was fine because we killed another bull called Potter. You get a little tired?
Like Harry Potter?
Yeah. Someone asked to talk about Potter. And Potter I didn't know a whole lot about. I have pictures of him from 15 and 16. They were just random cross-buys. Mm-hmm. This year he showed up 7 days before the rut, like before the rifle hunt started, pushing maybe 20 cows. And then I thought he actually got killed. We went in to hunt him second day of the hunt. Got into the camera that he had been hitting, and there was a carcass.
Really?
And I got on, and it shows these guys packing this bull out on my camera, like opening day of the hunt. I'm like, oh, crap. Because he was really the only big bull in there. So I'm like, oh, that's a bummer. So we kind of gave up on him. And then I ran into a guy who was like, yeah, those guys killed like a 320 bull. I'm like, opening day? Yeah, they just got out of here. I'm like, okay. So we went up there the next morning and killed Potter.
Oh, wow.
The reason he got the name Potter is because he kind of showed up out of left field like he magically appeared. And he had a lightning bolt scar right here between his two horns.
Yeah.
So he got that name then. Like, he wasn't a bull that was on my list. I never cared about. I had a few pictures of him. Mm-hmm. He was cool looking because all his horns laid out. All of his tines laid flat.
Yeah.
Like he got stuck in a press, and he grew that way every year. He's kind of wild looking. That's the bull you posted for that last podcast.
Okay.
That I'm standing by. That's Potter. Not a ton of history. I couldn't go over him too much other than I have a couple cool pictures of him from back in the day. So
let's switch gears just for a second, question. What do you think, I probably asked you this before, but as people are listening and they're getting ready to go into this new season, as of today, which is what, the 1st, 2nd of August, something like that.
2nd of August. Yeah.
What would you say is, some things that will lead to, someone's success, something that they can do that you would recommend or give advice to for someone that's heading out to the hills in 2 weeks to hunt elk?
Well, obviously that changes from state to state. If you're from here in Utah and your hunt begins, it's about 16 days out. I think it starts the 18th this year. So yeah, we're 2 weeks from Saturday. It's game on. Mm-hmm. And I've had a few people call just from that last podcast. It's interesting how much, like, how my DMs kind of blew up after that first live feed. And I've been consistently getting about 8 calls a day. Most of the phone calls are like, how do I get a hunt with you?
Sorry.
It's hard because, and it'd be nice to kind of throw this out there. I do guide. It's public land, limited entry. Mm-hmm. Hiring me is the easiest part.
Yeah, it's getting the tag.
The tag. It's the permit. It's like, man, do you have 20 points in Utah? Do you have $50,000 that you want to drop on an elk tag? That's where we land. And so it's kind of not fun talking to me. Like, I get those messages and I have to say, dude, I'm sorry. This is the way it rolls. Like, this is what you do. For a guy in Utah that's at this point right now, you haven't had a whole lot of time to, put out cameras, or you don't have the budget to run 100 cameras like I do. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't hurt. If you got a picture of one big bull on one spot, I've had 2 calls just in the last 2 days of guys that have tags. Mm-hmm. One kid's from Washington, doesn't have time to come down, but he's taken the whole month off for the hunt. Yeah. Where was the other kid from? He's from here in Utah. Drew one of the tags. He's been down once. His one trip, he tripped on a giant bull. Really? Yeah, and he videoed him through his binoculars and he sent it to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, that's bigger than any bull I have on any of my cameras. So you are doing an amazing job. Don't stress about it. And he's like, well, what do I do? And I said, wherever that bull is, I want you to get on Google Earth, learn where the benches are and learn where your water is. And I want you to sit at the most likely spot. Like, if you have 1 or 2 cameras or 5 cameras, put them in the 5 most likely spots around where you saw him and see if you can't get a picture. But your best shot at these early season bulls is to ambush them. Sit on a spot long enough that you're going to have elk coming through, but make sure it's a high traffic spot. You don't have a lot of time to pattern right now. You don't have a lot of money for cameras, but tree stand sitting, ground blind sitting is your best bet early season. As the rut rolls in, obviously, you're going to run a gun. Yeah. The bull's patterns shift. You're not going to see, you're just not going to luck into bulls. You're going to want to bugle. You're going to want to locate. And even at that, this is preseason rut. Mm-hmm. So it's not aggressive tactics. You don't want to be setting guys up with, bugling every 5 minutes and a guy cow calling off to the side and doing these aggressive tactics for elk. Typically that preseason, the only aggressive bulls are the dumb, like 4-year-old, 5-year-old bulls that they feel like this is their chance. Mm-hmm. And they'll start pushing cows around even though none of them are in heat yet. Right. You could
They can
call
pretend.
in. You could call in those bulls, but it's not very likely. Your best bet is just to locate bugle, get them piping off. Do like we talked a little bit about in that last podcast is to get one piping, let him lay in his bed, kind of work in on him slow. Hopefully you got a guy helping with you that can stay far enough away that's not going to push that bull out of his bed. Well, you kind of work in quiet and slow, and Utah's bow hunt's kind of set up that way. You know, people get mad. Utah's a good old boy system. Mm-hmm. We let the rifle guys have the best part of the rut. It's true, they do. Don't be mad about it. Wait like they are and get your rifle tag. Who cares? Yeah. But I personally would take this like Southern Utah archery tag over the governor's tag, because I know I could pattern a bull and kill him. I know I could do it. There's no questions in my mind. Like I can't even tell you how many times we've done it now. It's totally doable. It's just putting in the groundwork. You're a little late. You're only 2 weeks out. If you don't have the groundwork done already, well, you're kind of hitting the ground a little slow, but it's still doable.
But ambush is your
go-to.
Your best bet. Until when?
Till about Labor Day. Okay. Labor Day is when we're going to shift gears.
Another off-the-wall question, real quick. So, you've been guiding for how long?
05. So, 13 years.
13 years.
Yeah.
And kind of in the hunting space, right? And what's the most rewarding relationship in this space that you've due to the hunting and due to what you do that you've had? Like I often say, like hunting is a vehicle for friendship. Mm-hmm. So which ones? What maybe more than one, but where's one that's like real important to you? Rewarding
as far as like relationship with other people and hunters. Mm-hmm. Like you want me to name one individual?
Yeah, just
one.
Well, you can. So it's just a rewarding relationship as a result.
I'm a people person.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That's why I got my degree in marketing. I freaking love people. I've only had one or two hunters that I had issues with.
Yeah.
One was a lady that yelled at me over a 370 bull because it wasn't 400. And I told her it wasn't when she shot. I still don't understand why she was so mad. And the other was a guy that he booked me for these days. And then when I had to go take care of somebody else, he was mad. He wanted me to stay and help him. Issues that were kind of beyond my control. But almost everybody I've built relationships, incredible deep relationships that I still, I don't even, Kyle last year, unreal. Like I'll speak the world of him till the day I die, because he's just an incredible individual.
Yeah.
He's a killer. Mm-hmm. He's not a hunter. He's a killer, right? He's genuine. He's kind. I've had a couple guys like this. I had one guy that I helped him kill a bull, and he's going to be in camp this year. I'm kind of excited. I haven't seen him for 10 or 11 years. Mm-hmm. He's going to be in camp this year. I'm excited, but every time I see him, he's like, dude, I still owe you a truck. Because I helped him kill this bull, and he wasn't like a rich guy that could like give me a huge tip, or he's like, one day I'm just going to show up at your house with a new truck. And he's still not that guy, but every time he's like, I still owe you a truck. I love that guy.
Yeah.
Like just genuine, kind. Sean DeGray. Sean, the D in DC, he owns TAC. He thinks nobody knows who he is, but everybody knows who Sean DeGray is. I took him out in 2011. We spent 18 days on the mountain together, and he's one of my best friends. I still talk to him twice a week.
Yeah.
Just the relationship. Hunting's a weird thing, right? Like you're exposed. You're out of your element. Hunting is not our world. We're supposed to be in these beehive cities, right? That's our nature, is to stay together, to be in a village, to have a group. When you get outside by yourself, you're vulnerable to the elements. You're vulnerable to all these things, and you spend all these time vulnerable with other people. These grooves get made. That
I call it shared suffering that bonds people together.
And that could be very true.
I mean,
Sean in particular, I've cuddled with because we didn't bring too many kids, enough coats. So, no, it's true. And it's one of the things that's great about what we do. It allows us to be vulnerable with other people, to rely on each other to survive, to lean on each other when we need a hand. Nobody wants to pack 400 pounds of meat out by themselves.
Yeah.
Like when those people show up, that shows you who cares about you. You know, because a lot of times you make that call, oh, dude, my wife won't let me go. Like, there's just no way. You know, there's the guys that are like, honey, Ryan just killed a bull and needs my help. I'm out. Oh, you got this tomorrow. We'll move it. It's Ryan. See ya. Those are your friends, right?
Right.
Like, you learn really quick because they understand, like, he's vulnerable. He's in this spot. He needs me. That's my friend. I'm going to be there.
I'm putting out a film in a couple of weeks about Ben and Anthony. It's old footage, old stuff I've got. But he shot this bull, and he wasn't sure how. He thought it was a quartering away shot through the vitals, but it just didn't drop. You know, and it went embedded, and it was going down. He thought it might be there the next day, but he's by himself in Hell's Canyon. You know, something like that. And he's like, hey, Brian, calls me at like 10 p.m. at night or something like that. And he's like, hey, dude, I shot this bull. It's a great bull. Like, I'm so stoked, but I don't know if I can find it. I don't know if I actually killed it. You know, I don't know what to do. And I was like, all right, I'll be there. Well, he lives in Idaho. It's a 7-hour drive, you know, or something like that for me to get there. So I was like, all right. And I threw my stuff in the truck and I drove all the way to Idaho and met up with Anthony and then around the border of Oregon there. And the two of us then spent the next day like grinding after this bull, and we finally got it.
Sweet.
And that right there, it's like, I wouldn't have changed that for anything. It was like I drove all night. I didn't sleep. I hiked all day.
In Hell's Canyon after no sleep.
Yeah. And then we packed that bull out and we left our backpacks up on the top of the mountain, and I had to hike like 3 miles down and up needlessly for something like, you know, you learn a lot, but it was sacrifice and it was friendship.
Yeah.
And I think those things mean a lot. So I asked that question because I think that hunting is a vehicle to help strengthen bonds and friendships. You know,
fellowship is a crazy thing. It's a word that doesn't get used very much anymore. You know, fellowship is almost like the rainbow. We've lost it to a culture because people are too afraid to, you know, tell their buddies they love them.
Yeah.
And I love my friends. Like the kid that guides for me, Aaron, like, he's my brother, man. Do anything for him. Anything in the world. He's the most genuine person I know. And that's why he guides with me. He knows every spot. He knows every trail cam. He knows every bull probably better than me.
Yeah.
You know, he could sit on here and talk about these bulls probably better than I could on this podcast. That's my brother, dude. And so, you know, we lose these terms in culture, but I think a lot of hunters still have these terms. I'm not afraid to let my friends know, like, dude, I love you more than anything.
Yeah.
Like, thank you for showing up. You're the guy. I have a good luck charm, Roger. He is my go-to when it's day 7 of the rifle hunt. And we haven't killed, and I'm like, I need a spotter down here. You know, and every time I call Roger, we kill that next night. So every time, like, I call him and he's like, "Okay, I'll be there tomorrow morning." I call him that night. Dude, guess what? You're kidding me. You killed again. He's never had to show up once yet. He's my good luck charm. I kill every bull because of him. You know, and that's a friend. Like, he was, every time he's packed, he's ready to go. Like, didn't ask a question, didn't say, got to try to get off work. He's just there.
How old are you now?
41.
Right in there.
Yeah.
Big 4-0.
Yeah.
So what, I'm sure, like, when you first started hunting, think back and then think about where you're at now. What motivates you today to go out versus 20 years ago? Is there any change? Same things motivate you? Different things?
Different things. You know, I hunt elk because I love elk, and I don't hunt I don't go on the spike hunt. I don't hunt elk because I need the meat. I don't hunt elk because I hunt elk because I'm good at it. But when I started hunting elk, I started hunting for meat and spend time with my grandpa. He can't hike anymore. So now I'm spending time with Aaron, or I'm spending time with Sean, or I do get those bonds. I have different motivation. Now there's kind of a business side of it that I have to pay attention to. Not because I need the money. I have never once ever made money on guiding.
Yeah, it's kind of a break-even venture or a loss.
It's always a loss because I write everything off. So it's always a loss every single time. In fact, I just had to, I talked to my accountant. I'm like, dude, I'm not buying as many cameras this year. Like, I got all this other stuff last year. I don't need to buy new stuff. I'm like, what do I do? And he's like, dude, you need a new write-off. I'm like, well, I do need a new four-wheeler. And he's like, oh, perfect. You need this many dollars. And I'm like, I can make that work.
It is nice when your passion kind of helps pay for
absolutely.
for itself.
Absolutely. Like I'm not complaining at all. That's just finding a way to make ends meet.
Yeah.
But and that's why I say I don't do this for the money. I do it because I love these bulls. Every single one of them is, I have this relationship with an animal sometimes that I've never even seen in person. I have never once ever seen Donkey Kong in person.
Does when you said it earlier though, like I'm fascinated by this subject when someone kills, because I've done this where I've hunted a blacktail buck for years on end, and then one of the most gut wrenching things is to have that deer never show up again.
Lefty.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the deer's gone, and then it's like, and I'm not just, and then there's been the case where I shot a buck that I'd been after. And I remember coming to full draw on it going, I have really mixed emotions. Like I hear Mark Kenyon on Wired to Hunt, like trying to kill this buck called Holyfield. And it's like, there's this debate, like, do you kill it? Do you not kill it? And yeah, I've been at full draw going, and I've let down. I don't want to kill him this year. I'm going to let him get bigger. I'm wondering, am I really talking to myself into just wanting this adventure not to end, and then also to experience and see what he's going to do again? And then I've shot one, and I've been like, I remember shooting this buck, and then I called my brother and said, I shot that buck. He's down here. Can you come help me, find it, and stuff. And Brent's like, yeah. He shows up, and we're sitting there talking. I'm like, I'm just going to give him a little while. He's like, okay, cool. And what happened? I tell him the story, and we're talking. And he goes, hey, bro, are you glad you shot it, or are you sad you shot it? Like, I'm feeling like you have some major regret. And I'm like, it's not regret. It's just that you've just closed the book on a chapter that you have been sort of obsessing about and dreaming about and wondering about. And you develop, I think, an appreciation for an animal.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I laugh. I get it. This season, I have never had the mental struggle to get on the mountain like I have this year. And it's not because, some of the trails get old. A lot of it's physically demanding. Like I literally do between 13 and 18 miles a day doing cameras. That's there. It's hard. But my bulls died last year. MJ's dead. Bobby's dead. Zoolander's dead. Cinco's dead. Like these bulls that I've been watching for 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
Gone. So I walked to a camera going, Cinco. Oh.
No.
I wonder what I got on here this year. God, I'm going to go do this other camera. Screw this one. I don't even want to open it up to see he's not there.
Yeah.
So I know what you're saying. It's you develop these relationships. And I mean, people scoff at trophy hunting. That there's a good reason for trophy hunting. There's a good reason for picking an animal, like honing your trade, learning his behaviors. It makes you a better hunter as a whole. That learning those patterns off these target bulls or deer or whatever you're hunting has honed your skill a little bit more. And not only that, but taking the older age class always helps the herd.
Yeah.
Those bulls that come in and hook a hot cow that aren't running the 40 cows.
They've done their.
Well, they might only
passed
breed.
their genes
They might
on.
only breed 16 cows that year.
Yeah.
Whereas that bull with the herd, he's probably doing 40. And even though he's only 350, he's passing genes on like crazy. Like there's going to be more calves from that younger bull than that older bull. He needs to be harvested.
Yeah. Plus, he's probably already done his
His
offspring
in his prime years.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and so like I had some guy come at me last year. Why would you kill the biggest bull on the mountain? Like, good for you. But killing a bull with an animal you harvested or bought a weapon from the store and killed the biggest one possible. And I'm like, dude,
I think it's because when they're looking at it from the outside looking in, they're attributing really shallow motivations for it.
kill Bambi's dad.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's even more than that. It's like, well, you don't really care. You just want to pump your chest, beat your chest. But for anyone that's really in it, that knows, like, this labor that you go through and all this stuff that you do and all the people you help hunt these bulls, this is all part of a genuine love you have for the animals. And it just sounds so hokey.
Hypocritical almost.
Yeah, because you're out there hunting them.
You're killing the things you love, but all the same, like.
But at the same time, I did that podcast, but from with Luther Standing Bear, from his book Land of the Spotted Eagle, and he talks about wildlife and how the Indian appreciated, the Native American appreciated the animals. You know, they got familiar with different animals. You know that maybe even they took on the challenge of trying to go after a certain animal or bear, especially a bear, you know, and that they respected them. They hunted buffalo, but they also respected them.
Some tribes worshipped them.
Yeah.
They were gods to them.
You can kill and have absolute appreciation for
love.
And I think what's counterproductive to people is the fact that you do hunt them and then rely on them and consume them actually increases your appreciation, not decreases. It's no different than a farmer who deeply, deeply cares for his cattle because he relies on them, needs them, uses them. They're his livelihood and they're his sustenance. And so, yet he knows he's going to butcher them all, right? If it's not that hard to make that leap as let's say a non-hunter, someone who doesn't understand the concept of like pursuing an old animal. You know, you can still love that. You can love that animal and still hunt it. It's a very practical way to live, in fact, because everything is going to die and life eats life.
Well, it's the disconnect. That's the thing that frustrates me, and I try to refrain from having arguments of people that aren't in my own lane of thought, because it's hard to get them to understand. And I try when I'm able to do it without arguing. Yeah, I will have that conversation. Yeah, but when it comes abusive, you know, on one side where there's name calling and that's when I'm like, okay, we're not learning from this. Like, we're going to
right. This isn't us trying to challenge each other's ideas. This is us like trying to win an argument. Like, there's a totally different thing when you're both coming at it from a standpoint of I'd like to learn and explore reality and truth and see where we end up versus I'm right, you're wrong, and I'm gonna prove it to you. I'm gonna beat it over your head. Yeah. You know.
Well, I mean, the disconnect comes from people not earning their keep. And I see it in, not just in like a killing animal type thing, but like, you know, I own an exterior services company that we provide services for places like say we were coming in and, okay. So last week I had a job cleaning a building in Park City. Hey, you know, Park City's got a lot of yuppie people.
Yeah, it does.
They're my people.
They're wearing canvas tennis shoes.
Just like, yeah. I mean,
pristine white.
I think I got these in Park City. But, you know, we go in, we're cleaning this building. It's a beautiful building. and we're cleaning it. Yeah, I have some lady yelling at me about, you're washing all these chemicals all over into the plant. I'm like, lady, it's just water. Mm-hmm. She's like, well, you can't be doing this because it's putting all this other dirt into this area. And I'm like, I just see this as, lady, had you built this building or you paid for this building or you cared about it, and you're trying to make the best decision to keep it looking nice, you would understand that water's the most safe way to do it. You're not destroying the environment, and all you're doing is washing dirt down that got blown in there anyway. Like, I wasn't doing any damage whatsoever. Like, all I'm doing is preserving this building, trying to keep it clean and make it look nice, the best, most ethically way possible. Yet she had to find some reason to think I'm hurting the environment.
Yeah.
And it's like she's disconnected. She's never had to build a building like that, let alone maintain one. She's never made the hard decisions. Yeah. And we get the same thing with people who view hunting. They've never had to make the hard decision of these, these animals' lives depend on us. That bear that guy doesn't want to kill is going to kill how many moose calves or how many elk. That bear is going to murder 50 more because he made the decision for everybody else to throw his tag away. And yeah, you might seem like a great person to this person, but these people all understand the murder that's going to come from that animal. Not murder. That bear's just eating we do. There's nothing wrong with what he's doing. He's just being a bear.
Right.
But we understand that
it comes with consequences.
It takes a certain number to sustain a certain number. We are still a part of that number.
Yeah.
The ecology isn't just outside of us.
Right.
Like we are a part of this planet just like they are. Yeah. When there's too many of us encroaching on them, we've got to cut back some number somewhere.
So I feel like animals, people who do live in a city, they don't realize how much the wildlife, how much, first of all, financial gain that hunting provides in an economic sense, and they don't understand the food supply issue of wild game. And
well, that's first and foremost.
And those two things in relation to human beings, they don't connect those dots. And so then they're just like, we should just preserve it, leave it all alone. Just let nature be nature. Nature can't be nature anymore.
So then what do we do? Kill the people?
Nature, but
do we kill the people that are encroaching on their land? Like, we just want nature to be nature. Okay, well, we just had 2,000 more people born on the east side of the city just in the last month. So do we kill those 2,000 people because they're going to build homes going up into there?
Right.
No, I'm on team people. We've got to remove some animals. Now, whether we kill them and feed some people, we pay to haul them off to other areas. Those people aren't making those decisions with that money, with those animals' lives, whereas hunters are involved with those decisions.
Right.
Hunters are the ones donating their time to move them.
I agree. That's where I think, though.
That's the disconnect.
Yeah, that's a disconnect. And I really do want to see us tell that story better on a day-to-day basis among our friends and on our social media influence and on our platforms, to be able to throw out a fact or two here and there and be able to share an idea, present hunting in a way that is deeper than I just shot this, 400-inch bull.
Show the love and respect rather than the death.
Yeah. I think not just that, though, Ryan. Like, showing, talking about the food concept, and this is what you're eating today, and this is how I got this meat. How many bears there are in like a certain state, and it doesn't take long to like look up some of these things and then share a little detail here and there. I just think that that's more impactful than we think if we do it en masse, among hunters. So, just my 2 cents. But
dude, we're just two tired old guys.
We're getting all philosophical tonight.
Talking about elk. But I
love elk though.
Oh yeah,
it's that time of year, man. September's almost here.
It's August 2nd.
and for you guys, August.
Yeah. No, I don't have a bow tag this year, so and that's another reason maybe this year's hard because that's how I like to hunt, and I have some rifle guys. We're going to have a blast. I have a couple kids in camp, 16-year-old kids with tags, and that's always fun.
I'm going to go to Idaho with Corey Jacobson.
Sweet.
So we'll definitely be calling since Corey doesn't want to do anything else.
Well, you do what you're good at, man.
You do if you're the 9-time world elk calling champion.
I would like to.
You rely on calling.
That's an amazing. I would like to experience that. I would like to see that.
I'm excited to. I've called in a lot of elk, and I've called in elk for friends. I called elk for myself. I rely heavily on calling. When you grow up in Oregon and it's thick, even on the east side, it's thick. Uh-huh. We use calling to finish. You can't glass them like you can in some arid areas like Nevada, Arizona.
I know your pain, man.
Utah. Yeah. You're hunting similar units. That's strange.
Yeah.
When I think Utah, I think a lot more open.
Yeah.
Than what you're hunting, but it's a different ball game when you're hunting that thicker, and I relied on calling more. Plus, it was more exciting. Uh-huh. To hear a bull scream at you and come through the trees, it's pretty cool.
Guys who can work elk is few and far between. Guys that can bugle is one thing. Guys that know how to work elk and work the wind and do setup and understand bubbles, understand what the parameter is between. This is when we can be aggressive and work straight into them, and this is when we got to back off, and you stay back here and call, and I'm going to try to work my way in slow.
All of that happens during the experimenting, during the call. He calls a little, you call a little, and you move in, and he moves off, and you're like, oh, that didn't work. Now let's try this. And all of that's like, I guess it just comes from experience, because you're right. I know some guys that can make some great elk sounds. Mm-hmm. That's not what I call calling.
Yeah. And that's why, it'd be cool to hear Corey call. Mm-hmm. But I can do that in Salt Lake. Yeah. I can go check out the calling championships and watch him. Which I think
that's not what I want to see, though.
So weird. But
I want to see
what I would want to see.
Cadence. When you call, when you don't call, when you switch to a cow, when you do a bull, how you cut an elk off.
On country that, Idaho's so public. It's not like it's a limited entry unit. Mm-hmm. You're working bulls that get worked constantly. And so seeing a guy like Corey work that kind of magic, I would love to see that.
Yeah.
That'll be a great experience.
I'm excited. I'm lucky. I grew up, I started hunting with Anthony, my buddy Anthony, and he has a natural instinct for calling, and I watched him and I learned from him and I picked it up from him. And so there's things I like to do that work. And, so much of that it's so rewarding when you can, and, when I watched Born and Raised this year, their Land of the Free project, I watched their whole thing. I loved it. I've been a huge fan of Born and Raised since the start. They're in my hometown, and then my country in Oregon. And, but sitting there and listening to and watching how they worked bulls with Corey, where a guy hangs back and they do the slingshot method and things like that. Like, we'd been doing that forever. Mm-hmm. And I can't think that I really learned that from anybody. It just was common sense that we sort of just, hey, you know what? If we did this, I bet it would work. Mm-hmm. And
well, that's the schematics of our generation. Like, a lot of us have that brain. Like, we're going to do this, and this doesn't work, we're going to try this. And if this works, we're going to do it again. But if it doesn't, we're going to try this. And we have the schematical approach in our generation, and that's how I learned too. It's not
there's
like
some people
Wayne Carlton didn't take me out and show me how to work the stuff.
And you've called in tons of bulls, and what I think is interesting though is some people don't get it. Like, I have been hunting with people for years, and like, I love my cousin Ben to death, but he just doesn't do the calling very well.
Right.
Like, he can make elk sounds, but there's like, when do you rake the tree, and when do you call, when do you move forward, and when do you move back, and like in that process while your shooter's out in front of you, and how do you move the elk toward the shooter if the elk starts moving downwind? What are the things that you do? Like, that's, to me, like, you just kind of figured it out as over the years, and it's instincts in some level. Yeah. And then there are people that just are like, they don't do it. They just don't. and you're like, why didn't you do blah, blah, blah when it did X, Y, Z? And they're like, what do you mean?
Why would you do that?
Why would you do that? And it's like, but that said,
Yeah.
Ben is a ninja. Me and Anthony were thinking about it the other day, and we've never actually called an elk in for Ben ever. Ever. He's always either not capitalized on that moment for some reason. What he does is goes rogue. Like, he can't sit still, and when the bull's coming in and we have this whole plan and the game plan, he just goes out and kills it.
Yeah.
He just goes out and kills it. And he's that killer. Like, he just kills it by himself.
Everyone has a different approach to getting jobs done.
But it's instinct for him to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so his communication and his calling is not great, but his ninja skills are on another level.
Dude, you learn as you go. I would never, even 5 years ago, my approach wasn't my approach now.
Yeah.
Even, my approach changed when I went from 10 cameras to 60. When I started figuring out, I always knew I could pattern bulls. I learned that on the Dutton in like 04. Like, when I started figuring out, holy crap, he's here. Here we are, day 8, he's back here. Okay, here, 8 again. Oh my gosh. And all of a sudden I start putting these pieces together, and then as I start moving units and putting more cameras, I'm like, oh my gosh, they all do it. Every single one of them. And my whole game changed maybe 5 years ago. But before that, I was a caller, and I've always been a good caller. And I didn't know I was a good caller until I was guiding this old man from Idaho, and he's killed, if I remember right at that time, I think he's close to 50-something now, but he was at 47 bulls he'd killed with a bow. Jeez. Lives in Boise, Bill Murray, BFM. The second he calls me, I'm like, Bill freaking Murray. Like, I think he's 74 now. He still bow hunts. I still talk to him probably once a month. He talks a long time. So when Bill calls, my wife's like, see you in an hour. But it didn't come to me. This is 2007 or 8. I worked a bull in on him. He made one of those throat shots we were talking about earlier. The bull spun to get out of there and fell over dead. And I've never seen a blood path, even to this day, since that day. It was the wildest thing ever. And Bill, that bull died, and we broke him down into pieces. And then we went to hike out to grab the pack frames. And we were sitting there like eating a sandwich. He's like, you have a real gift at calling bulls. He goes, I've hunted with, I don't know how many guys and how many years, and I've killed 47 bulls with my bow. I've never seen anyone do that kind of. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
There comes a point when you figure it out. It's just a matter of doing it lots of times. And it's the same thing I talked about with packing meat out. Like, you just got to do it lots of times. You got to kill and kill and kill and kill and kill. And then all of a sudden, you don't care if you kill one 12 miles off the road, because you know how to manage it. You know how to break it into pieces. You know where to hang it for it to stay cool while you make a second trip or a third trip or a sixth trip. Yeah. Because you're one guy. That doesn't scare you anymore.
No.
And so the only way you learn to do that stuff is just to do it constantly and love it.
Yeah.
And if you don't love it, you're going to sit in the blind 15 minutes and you're going to walk out. You love it or you don't.
Yeah.
So,
it's very true.
That's true.
Well, folks, thanks for tuning into the Gritty Bowman Pot, or Gritty Pot. I'm going to have to edit that.
Okay.
Edit that.
Do it again.
All right, Ryan. We should probably wrap it up.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the podcast again.
Anytime.
And people can find you on Instagram.
Yeah, just social media.
Social media.
I don't run a website.
DC.
I don't do YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah. DC Outfitters.
DC Outfitters.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, my social media is pretty easy to find. Yeah. Anything else? Like, I book my hunts out pretty early. I don't run a website.
Yeah.
I guide public land. Please don't hit me up to guide you if you don't understand the process. Yeah. But I love the phone calls. I love talking elk. I don't mind the DMs. I can't keep up with a lot of them, but
yeah, a
lot of the questions we didn't get to on live, I'm happy to go over with people if they want to send it my way.
Yes. Well, I appreciate it, man. Wealth of information, and I really enjoyed this. So, folks, Send Ryan a thank you if you enjoyed the podcast. Let him know. And because all I did was buy him some dinner. So it was a cheap sandwich from Jimmy John's.
I love Jimmy John's.
So there you have it. All right. Stay gritty. Despite our ever-changing, ever-indignant world with its growing ignorance of and indifference to the ways of the wild, I remain a predator, pitying those who revel in artificiality and synthetic success while regarding me and my kind as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood. I stalk a real world of dark wood and tall grass stirred by a restless wind blowing across sunlit water and beneath star-strewn sky. And on those occasions when I choose to kill, to claim some small part of nature's bounty for my own, I do so by choice, quickly, with the learned efficiency of a skilled hunter. Further, in my heart and mind, I know the truth and make no apologies for my actions or my place in time. Others around me may opt to eat only plants, nuts, and fruits. Still others may employ faceless strangers to procure their meats, their leather, their feathers, and all those niceties and necessities of life. Such is their right, of course, and I wish them well. All I ask in return is no one begrudge me, and all of us who may answer the primordial stirrings within our hunter souls, my right to do some of these things myself. What you just heard is a quote from M.R. James. We truly live in a world that is largely ignorant and indifferent to the ways of the wild. And although some regard us as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood, we have the opportunity to change the way these people view the hunter and the hunt. We can share our experiences and nature's bounty with those who employ these faceless strangers. And by so doing, we make a difference, not just for ourselves, but for the wild animals and the wild places we care so deeply about. Never stop sharing your passion for hunting and the outdoors. Our wild animals and our wild places depend on it.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to The Gritty Bowman.
Gritty Bowman.